I think the problem that I have with the 9-to-5 matrix is that it's not delivering on its promises. To a degree, almost everything in this world is created and made up by human beings. And why not have space for new creations, new ideas, alternative ways of living? There are possibilities that exist outside of the norm. And so I think it's important to question the norm. I think about freeing up my resources and time to do what I truly want to do. I would rather spend my time trying to live in a way that is more in alignment with my values than just simply accepting that this is the way that things are. If you clicked on this video, chances are that you are feeling dissatisfied in some type of way with the 9-to-5 matrix in which most of us live. I think it's a pretty common sentiment amongst people living in first world countries, living in some of the most privileged conditions on the planet. And I have to ask myself why that is. If we are so privileged, so comfortable, why is it that we are so dissatisfied with this 9-to-5 matrix that we live in? In this video, I want to share with you my one hypothesis as to why I think this is, as I think it can help to inform our efforts to leave the matrix. And then I want to share with you my own personal escape plan. And then after that, I would like to just get into some thoughts and ideas about leaving the matrix. So with all of that being said, I actually want to start by just simply defining what the matrix is. And I looked up a definition on Google, and it comes from LinkedIn. And this definition says, the matrix refers to the systems and structures in society that keep us bound to the traditional ways of living and working. These systems can include societal norms, cultural expectations, educational institutions, and corporate structures that often prioritize profit over people. Now, obviously, there's this kind of overarching matrix, but I think that there are mini matrices within the large overarching matrix. And so the one that I want to talk about today specifically is the 9-to-5 matrix. And I want to say that this video was partly inspired by Calla Floden's video, where he describes his own journey out of the 9-to-5 matrix. And I appreciate how he talks about the fact that everyone's experience within the matrix is going to be different. Some people are going to be completely satisfied within the same systems that others are not satisfied with. And that's okay. And I kind of just want to add my 2 cents to that and say that I personally don't think that there is anything wrong with being content and satisfied within the 9-to-5 matrix. I think that there is a lot of talk about leaving the 9-to-5 and having more freedom, but if the 9-to-5 works for you, I think that is wonderful. In fact, I wish it could work for me, because in a lot of ways, I think life would be more simple and I would not be wrestling with this dissatisfaction so much. I think the problem that I have with the 9-to-5 matrix is that it's not delivering on its promises. So a lot of us were taught that as long as we get a good paying job, that we are going to be well taken care of, that we are going to have our basic needs met plus some. We get to enjoy life a little bit. Well, I find that the reality is actually more like coming home feeling exhausted and not having any energy left over for the things that you truly love and want to explore. Because let's be honest, most of us are working 9-to-5 jobs that don't necessarily delve into our passions or the things that we're really interested in. Not only that, but we're finding out that these wages that we promise were going to provide us with stability and security are not keeping up with inflation. Personally, in my own country, inflation is on the rise, the cost of living is skyrocketing, and I'm realizing that it's just not a happy time for a lot of people because they're feeling stressed out just having to pay for the basic necessities of life. And on that note, I think one of the most ridiculous costs that we have to pay for is housing. I think that it's unethical how much it's becoming to even just be able to afford a house or afford to pay rent. And I just think that we feel trapped in this system of just going to work to therefore have to pay for the basic necessities of life. And there's this lyric that I really enjoy. It comes from a song by the band called Metric. And in it she says, "Go to work to pay for this car, drive this car to go to work." And it's just this cycle that never ends. And I think a lot of people are becoming house poor, you know, like they're spending most of their paycheck on this expensive mortgage. And then what do they have left over? And again, don't get me wrong, we are some of the most wealthiest. And when I say we, I assume that you watching this on the internet probably are wealthy enough to afford internet and therefore are probably wealthier than a lot of people on this planet. So do not get me wrong. I'm not trying to say that I have it the worst or anything like that. But I think it's funny that like when people do have it all, they are usually not very happy. And so again, I want to get into why this is. And I just wanted to kind of preface with what the Matrix is and why I have a beef with the 9-to-5 Matrix. I think that when the 9-to-5 Matrix or any type of matrix that you live in starts to not fulfill its promises, it's time to start questioning those systems. So with that out of the way, I want to get into why is it that so many of us are not satisfied with our 9-to-5 jobs. I have been reading a book called The World Until Yesterday, What Can We Learn from Traditional Societies by Jared Diamond. And in this book, he talks about how play prepares hunter-gatherer children for adult life. So much so that there's just this seamless transition into adulthood. So, for example, hunter-gatherer children will mimic the roles and responsibilities of adults in their play. They are pretending to go on hunts. They are pretending to gather food, pretending to fulfill the role of a parent. And in mimicking these adult roles and responsibilities, there, again, seems to just be this seamless transition into adulthood where suddenly one day they're not pretending, they're actually doing it. I think that in our modern world, there isn't as much of a seamless transition between childhood and adulthood. The reason is because I don't think that our play fully prepares us for the adult world that we are currently living in. I think a lot of the play that we participate in as children does prepare us for the adult world that we live in. For example, we pretend to be teachers, we pretend to be doctors, we also pretend to be a part of a family and play house, and a lot of that does prepare us. But I think there are these more primal type activities that we do as children, even though we're not living in a hunter-gatherer society, that does not translate well to adulthood. So for example, we may still participate in building forts when we're kids. We pretend to make fires. And I think that these primal type activities are just largely forgotten about once we get to adulthood. There's no transition. And so I'm not saying that we all need to start hunting and gathering and carrying out these roles and responsibilities in a society where they are not needed on a daily basis. We don't have to make fires and gather food for our survival on a daily basis. But what I am saying is that I think it's valuable to at least reflect back on our childhood and ask ourselves, what did we like to play? What did we like to explore and do that maybe we're missing as an adult? Maybe it's something that we really loved that we just kind of lost along the way because that play was not maybe valued as much as it would be in a hunter-gatherer society. I think play is stifled in our first world societies. We don't play as much as we should, in my opinion. And therefore, I just don't think that we're as prepared for adult life. And again, a lot of the play that we do engage in does not translate well to working in an office job, for example. So that is my one hypothesis as to why maybe there is a disconnect. But it's certainly not the only reason why we may be dissatisfied with our 9-to-5 jobs, and I would be super curious to hear in the comments below what you think. Why do you think that so many of us are seeking alternatives to the 9-to-5 life? I now want to share with you my own personal escape plan. And I want to do this to hopefully spark your own ideas about this topic. So my escape plan. I have two streams of income right now because, let's be real, money is a huge factor in leaving the matrix. Most of us are reliant on money for survival and to just enjoy life. So I am a substitute teacher, and I also started a YouTube channel about a year ago, and I was able to get monetized, which was super exciting. There is so much potential to make money on the internet, and I think it is a great opportunity, though I will get into later the inner conflicts that I sometimes have with exploring alternatives, especially on the internet. But that is for later. For now, I just want to say those are my two streams of income, and substitute teaching is the bulk of my income. YouTube has been pretty minimal for me so far. I will be super upfront and say that I have made probably a total of $140 that has been sent to my bank account from YouTube. And that was super awesome to see real money come from this. But obviously it's not making me a ton. Let's just say that, yet. Anywho, those are my two streams of income. And recently my husband and I decided to move into my parents' house. My parents are currently living in a foreign country for the next year and a half. And so we asked them if it would be okay if we moved in and saved up some money and lived rent-free while they were gone. And they kindly allowed us to do so, and we feel super grateful that we have this opportunity. This is definitely going to help us save up a sum of money. How much, I don't know, but that sum of money is going to allow us to take steps to hopefully leave the matrix and or find a way to be satisfied within the matrix. My husband is thinking of a career change. We may be saving for that. And in the future, I eventually would like to save up for a tiny house. As I was mentioning in the beginning of this video, housing is a huge problem, I think. And so instead of paying off a house for the remainder of most of my life, I think a tiny house is a reasonable solution to this over-expensive housing crisis. I plan to save up money to own this tiny house up front. I would ideally like to be able to build it myself with the help of other people who know what they're doing better than I do. And I think it would be even more awesome if the tiny house was self-sufficient. Well, not self-sufficient, sorry. I think it would be awesome for the tiny house to be off-grid. That's what I meant to say, so that we could be more self-sufficient. I think that that would be huge in escaping the matrix. So that's my plan. I now want to share with you some of the thoughts and ideas that might be helpful to hear when considering leaving the matrix. And the first one is to have a spirit of questioning. If you don't take the time to really evaluate why things are the way that they are, then you're just going to have to simply accept that this is the way that life is, and you're probably going to remain stuck in some of the cycles that maybe you're not satisfied with. And so I think it's really important to question these systems that we live in, because they're not the way that they are because that's the only way to live life. You know, I think to a degree almost everything in this world is created and made up by human beings. And why not have space for new creations, new ideas, alternative ways of living? There are possibilities that exist outside of the norm. And so I think it's important to question the norm, but also to realize that not everything is bad about the matrix. Again, lots of people are satisfied with their 9-to-5 jobs, and to them I say, keep at it. I think that is wonderful. If everyone were to suddenly step outside of the matrix tomorrow, society might be complete and utter chaos. But I think the more realistic thing that's happening is that people are gradually over time finding alternative ways of living and sharing with each other, and it's creating this beautiful ripple effect where people are able to live their lives more in alignment with what they value. So that would be my first, I guess, thought or idea, is to not be afraid to question. And then I think as you question, you start to dream about what life would look like outside of the matrix. And I think that this is a really important step, to just dream and let yourself visualize what you want life to look like outside of the matrix. Because I think that this can act as a really powerful motivator and a really powerful why to help you make it a reality. And so for myself, when I think about tiny house living and not paying an expensive mortgage, I think about freeing up my resources and time to do what I truly want to do. And I actually would be happy working a regular job. It's just that the job that I want to do does not earn me enough money to afford a traditional house. And so I would gladly trade in the big fancy, well, not even the big fancy house, just a house for a tiny house so that I could have the more regular Monday to Friday job that I want. And so that is one thing that I fantasize about, or that I dream about, is being a forest school facilitator and working with children outdoors on a weekly basis, and not feeling like there's so much pressure on that job to earn me so much money. I also envision just living more in sync or in rhythm with the sun, and waking up when my body is ready to wake up, and going to bed at night when I'm tired, and not having that be dictated by a job or a boss or an alarm clock. And I envision just coming home from work and having the energy to be creative and make videos if I want to make videos. But if I don't want to make videos, then not make videos. I think that having this lifestyle would allow me to be creative when I want to be, instead of feeling pressure to create all the time. Because I think as an online creator, there's this pressure to just constantly be creating. I think a lot of people earning money on the internet are taking advantage of an awesome opportunity, but there are definitely downfalls to that, where you feel this pressure to constantly put yourself out there. And so I envision in my tiny house life just being able to create when inspiration strikes, and to take space when it's not flowing to me as much. And I think it's really important to allow for that space in our lives, because that's where creativity is born from. I also imagine just learning how to live more off-grid and being more self-sufficient, but yet at the same time exploring how to have a better community, because we all in most first world countries are very instilled with individualistic tendencies from early on, and I want to learn a different way of living, and so I imagine myself having the time for that. Those are just some of the things that I imagine when I dream up my tiny house life out of the 9-to-5 matrix. And once you have dreamed a dream and you've visualized what you want your life to look like, I think then it's time to look at what's within the realm of possibility, and to then make a plan to act on it, and to think about what sacrifices you might need to make in order to make those things happen. So for myself, this opportunity of living at home to save money is an awesome one, but it does come with sacrifices. I had to move away from the mountains, which I loved living in the mountains. And I'm now in my childhood town, and it's just different. It feels kind of funny, but it's okay. I'm happy to do it because I know that it's just one step in the journey. And so what sacrifices can you make to just take a step forward in the direction that you want to go? As you identify the sacrifices that you might need to make, and as you make a plan, I think it's super important to practice patience. I think often we are sold this message that you can have things quickly, that instant gratification is there for you, and you can have a quick success. And I think that that's possible to have quick successes in life, but it's more of the exception, not the rule. And so if you're trying to earn extra income on the internet like I'm trying to do, I think there's a tendency to think that this is just going to take off and make you tons of money, and when it doesn't, you're more likely to quit if you're not seeing those instant results right away than if you were to remind yourself that things take time and to just trust in that. I think that that is hugely important, because I don't think that leaving the 9-to-5 matrix is a quick journey. You're in it for the long haul. I may not achieve my tiny house dream for years. I might be 50, who knows, but that's okay, because I would rather spend my time trying to live in a way that is more in alignment with my values than just simply accepting that this is the way that things are. And I would rather fail at something that I love to do than succeed in something that I do not love to do. And I think it's important to remind ourselves of that when we're not experiencing the successes immediately. Life is a journey. This is going to be a journey too. And would you rather spend your time in that journey, or would you rather spend your time in someone else's journey or someone else's idea for your life? On that note, I think it is also important to remember that everyone's journey is going to look totally different. And I think that is the beautiful thing about life, is there's not one way to do things. And I think it's fun to learn from each other and hear different stories from different people on the internet or in our communities about the alternatives that they're finding to the 9-to-5 matrix. And I hope that in the comments that we can discuss with each other what ideas we have about leaving the 9-to-5 matrix so that we can be of inspiration to one another. In talking about how this is a journey, I also think it's important to remind ourselves that our journeys may unfold in unexpected ways. I know that for myself, my journey has totally ended up looking different than I imagined, and that's okay. I am really proud of just going after the things that I want in life and then adapting as maybe I change or circumstances change. And just being flexible. I think if you're not flexible and you're just really rigidly married to one idea or one plan, you may be less likely to eventually make your exit out of the matrix. My last thought comes from a book called Think Indigenous. And this has been one of the most helpful pieces of advice that I have come across as of late in my own journey of leaving the matrix. In the book, the author talks about the systems in which we live and how some of them are not the best. I just want to read a quote from the book. He says, "It's nearly impossible to live our lives without taking part in many of these malicious systems. It took hundreds of years for these evils to become so pervasive, and it's going to take some time to unravel them all. It is not inauthentic to do what you can and at the same time live in the world that we have." That last line was just such a mind shift for me because I have been wrestling with feeling like a hypocrite when it comes to trying to make my exit out of the matrix and participating in some systems that I don't fully agree with. For example, I don't fully agree with how social media functions, how it's designed to hold our attention for as long as humanly possible. I enjoy aspects of social media and I like participating in the matrix of the internet, but it's hard to feel in full good conscience when I'm participating in something that I don't fully agree with. And so I've really wrestled with this whole pursuit of even trying to make money on the internet and receiving money from AdSense. And I just really appreciated this advice from this book because it made me realize that I do have some perfectionistic tendencies and that is kind of a barrier at times in trying to make progress because it is just not possible to perfectly make your exit out of any type of matrix, I don't think. We want to just leave these systems immediately, but leaving any type of matrix, including the 9-to-5, is not going to look like just opening up a door and suddenly when you step outside, you're out, you're completely done. I think the journey out of the matrix is more akin to walking down a path. And to start with, you may be surrounded by things that don't fully align with you, that you don't agree with, that maybe feel unethical. But as you continue to take steps forward, you begin to be surrounded more and more by the things that do align with you. I think I just have to remind myself of that sometimes, that I'm not going to be able to be perfect ever. You know, I'm gonna have an impact that's not always positive, but at the same time, how much good am I preventing myself from putting out there by just saying, well, I can't do any of it. I can't put myself out there on the internet. No, I can't do that because what if I am the reason why somebody spends a little bit too much time on their phone or their screen or their devices? There's just no perfect exit, no such thing as living a perfect life. And so we do the best that we can within the systems that we were born into. And sometimes that means being able to leave them eventually, and sometimes not. I think sometimes we have to work within the environment and the circumstances that we have and do our best within those. But for those that do feel kind of a calling to step outside of certain systems, I think it's important to listen to those voices, because for the people who are totally unable to do that, I personally don't think that we're going to help those people anymore by staying inside of those systems. I think that solutions are often found by stepping outside of the box. And so if you feel a calling to seek out alternative ways of living, whatever that looks like to you in your own visualization of life outside of the matrix, I would encourage you to keep pursuing that and exploring that. Lastly, I just want to end with a common sentiment in my videos, and that is to enjoy life now as well. I think that it is human nature to prepare for the future. I think it's necessary for our survival and also for our thriving and enjoyment of life. But I also do think it is important to enjoy the journey, as cliche as it may sound. So I want to just end off with that the journey can be just as enjoyable as experiencing the results in the future, and to just kind of enjoy the ride, because like I said before, not everything goes the way that we think. We make plans and we adapt and we change, and that's okay. For example, I may find a house someday that I don't mind paying a mortgage for. It could happen. I am open to any possibilities. So I hope that you are too. I hope that you're open to possibilities, and I'm excited to hear your own thoughts and ideas about this topic. Please share with me if you have your own personal escape plan, what has helped you along your journey, or maybe you're satisfied with the 9-to-5 life. And if that's the case, I would love to hear about your experience with that too. So thank you so much for watching. If you're new here, my name is Carolyn. My channel is called Awaken Our Wild, because I think that there are aspects of our humanity that are often stifled in this first world society that we are living in. And I seek to identify what those aspects of our humanity are and discuss ways in which we can awaken them and be fully alive in this human experience. So if any of that resonates with you, if this video resonated with you, please consider subscribing to my channel and leaving a comment. I would love to hear from you and engage with you there. And I hope that I will see you in another video soon. Bye.